So what did we learn from last night's Tennessee versus Bama game? Let's get into it. First and foremost, we've got to start off. The Tennessee fan base was going absolutely bonkers in that stadium and made it a living nightmare for Alabama for the entire game. The Volunteers crowd did not give up one bit at any point in the game and literally made it impossible for Alabama to communicate for the entire game. But let's get into it and really break down what did we learn from this Alabama versus Tennessee game. Be sure to leave this video a like, comment down below what are your guys' thoughts on the game, and be sure to hit the subscribe button. We're dropping 5 videos all the time and we're on the road to 300K. So this Alabama versus Tennessee game has a lot of similarities to me to the Alabama versus Texas game if Quinn Ewers did not get hurt. Alabama's single biggest weakness this year has been none other than their penalties. Alabama can simply not keep the yellow flag off the field. Alabama got off to an extremely slow start and it put them behind the 8 ball from the jump. They were down 21-7 in the first quarter, and most of that was due to the fact that they had 7 penalties in the first quarter. They had 17 penalties for 130 penalty yards for the entire game. On top of that, Alabama could simply not give Bryce Young a clean pocket consistently. It seemed like every single play Bryce Young had to, which he's Bryce Young, he can do it, but it seemed like Bryce Young had to always make something happen simply for Alabama's offense to keep on moving. The only 2 consistencies on Alabama's offense, which has been their 2 consistencies the entire season, were Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs. Both of those guys are absolutely making plays consistently for the Alabama Crimson Tide. You could throw Cameron Latu in there as well. However, he did have a couple of mishaps here and there, but for the most part, he was also playing very well too. But Alabama's offensive line, if they weren't giving up pressure, they were getting holding penalties, and then Alabama's receivers kept jumping off sides. Now, part of that was to, like I said earlier in the game, the Volunteers crowd was going crazy the entire game. Like the decibel meter did not drop the entire game. From kickoff to the end of the game, the Volunteers were making some noise. Now, I will say that even though this was a very sloppy game for Alabama, it does show the quality and just how good that Alabama, more specifically how good Bryce Young is, because for you to be down 21-7 in the first quarter with against a high-powered offense like Tennessee, and then to also give up 17 penalties, this game shouldn't have even been as close as it was. But Bryce Young absolutely kept Alabama in this game. Now switching over to Tennessee, Tennessee played their most complete game that they have played the entire season against Alabama. Tennessee took all the lessons that they learned from all the other games that they played before, and they just absolutely put together a masterclass of a game against Alabama. And I'm really most impressed with Tennessee's defense. Tennessee was flying around and made it a long day for Bryce Young. I mean, Bryce Young never seemed to be able to have a clean and comfortable pocket to throw out of unless he was getting the ball literally out of his hands in 1 second. Bryce Young was constantly having to evade the pressure, was constantly having to just run around and scramble for his life just to make a play happen. Anytime that Alabama tried to bounce the ball outside, Tennessee was so fast and explosive on the boundaries. Tennessee, literally their defense was doing a phenomenal job of covering in the secondary. They're flying from edge to edge, and the defensive line was getting after the quarterback. They were making it a long day for Alabama's offense. Like I said, Bryce Young is just him, but Tennessee played phenomenally on the defensive side of the ball. When you really take into account that 14 of Alabama's points probably shouldn't have really come. I mean, obviously you had the scoop and score by Dallas Turner, and then the interception that Hendon Hooker threw, just the field positioning, it was kind of inevitable that Alabama was going to score. To hold Alabama to that low scoring of a game, but pretty much to hold Alabama to as low scoring of a game as they could with how quickly that Tennessee was scoring. I mean, literally time of possession, you had what? Time of possession, Alabama had 37 minutes of possession compared to Tennessee's 22 minutes. And literally that is my only knock against Tennessee in this game. The only downside is that Tennessee was scoring way too quickly. Yes, it is always great to score touchdowns, but not all touchdowns are created equal. And with Tennessee scoring so quickly, you're not giving your defense time to recover. You're giving Alabama too much time to be able to create drives. The biggest one being, obviously, your defense is just going to be extremely tired. Tennessee, that was the only downside, is that Tennessee was scoring way too quickly. And when you got guys like Jalen Wyatt just absolutely taking the top off the defense every other play, it kind of makes it hard to have a slow offensive drive. So now getting into my final breakdowns of the game, starting it off with Alabama. If Alabama wants to do anything for the rest of this season, they need to be more disciplined. You cannot give up the amount of penalty yards that Alabama has been giving up in recent weeks and expect to win. The fact that Alabama is even close in this game, again, it shows how good that Alabama is, but they're literally beating themselves. If Alabama had half as many penalty yards, you can expect Alabama to come out with this game with a win of about 7 to 10 points. But because of the fact that they keep on stalling out drives, and it's not just the fact they're getting penalty yards, they're getting penalties in the worst times on 3rd, 4th downs. They're putting themselves behind the 8 ball. It's like, oh, it'll be 3rd and 10 and they'll get a first down. Oh, holding call. Now it's 3rd and 15. Oh, pass interference. Oh, delay of game. How many delay of game penalties were there in this game? Like, Alabama just kept on shooting themselves in the foot, and at a certain point, you're not going to be able to walk into a victory. So, Alabama, if they want to do anything on the back half of this season, they need to clean up the penalties. But in brighter news, Bryce Young is absolutely him. For him to come back from his shoulder injury and just sling the rock to perfection. I mean, he was 35 of 52 for 455 yards and 2 touchdowns, having a 89.4 QBR. Bryce Young came out and he just showed why he is the quarterback that he is. He was absolutely throwing dots, lasers. He was putting together a masterclass. Then that's 35 of 52 with some drops, like some very blatant drops. Bryce Young is the most dynamic quarterback in this entire class. He should be the first quarterback taken. It shouldn't even be close. He is a franchise leading quarterback for whoever ends up drafting him, but Bryce Young is him. He can flat out do it all. His ability to evade pressure, to be able to think and throw the ball with pressure in his face, to make a play, to be able to scramble a little bit. Hey, Bryce Young is him. And another dude that is him is Jahmyr Gibbs. That combo is absolutely just a phenomenal combo for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Jahmyr Gibbs is a flat out do it all back. If he's not the number 1 running back taken in this year's draft, I don't know what people are looking at. You need a running back who can catch the ball in the backfield. Jahmyr Gibbs showed that he is a true receiving back. I'm not going to give, he doesn't have the same hands like a Christian McCaffrey did coming out of high school or coming out of college, but he is a very viable weapon in the passing game. And I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is an absolute star for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Other than that, Alabama needs to clean up their game. I mean, they're flying around. They were making plays here and there on the offensive side of the ball. They looked absolutely anemic on the defensive side of the ball. Hendon Hooker just looked like he was just throwing the ball in a field of daisies out there. Like there was absolutely no pressure, no consistent pressure at least on Hendon Hooker. Alabama's defensive line could not create any pressure on Hendon Hooker. And with that, you're just giving one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country plenty of time to be able to pick apart your defense, as well as there were so many miscues on Alabama's secondary that there was the reason why Jalen Hyatt got to go for 206 yards and 5 touchdowns on y'all. It was mainly because of miscues in the secondary. Giving one of the best quarterbacks in the country time to throw to one of his best targets while also having defensive miscues is going to be a recipe for disaster. This just looks to be one of the most unfocused and undisciplined teams that we have seen from an Alabama squad pretty much ever. This is so uncharacteristic of Alabama to be this undisciplined. It will be interesting to see how the rest of Alabama's season goes. It'll be interesting to see how far they drop. I see them probably becoming the 6th team now. I see Tennessee sliding up to probably 4-ish, 3 or 4. I see Alabama dropping to maybe 5 or 6, probably 6. And it'll just be interesting to see if they can claw their way back into the college football playoffs. But it is definitely going to be an uphill battle. And Alabama just needs to stop beating themselves. And the final analysis on Tennessee. Hendon Hooker is an absolute... He could just throw dimes. Hendon Hooker has one of the best deep balls in all of college football. He was simply not missing. He had maybe one, I think he had 2, but I know for sure he had 1 overthrown ball. He was not missing on the deep ball at all the entire night. He was hitting his wide receivers in stride. Again, it makes it a lot easier when you're having secondary miscues. But Hendon Hooker was standing out there comfortably. He was causing all sorts of issues for Alabama's defense with his mobility, his ability to be able to extend plays with his feet, his ability to just be able to throw the ball all across the field. whoever ends up picking up Hendon Hooker in this year's draft, they're going to be getting a very, very solid quarterback. I think that Hendon Hooker has established himself as being one of the best quarterback prospects in this year's class. I'm just excited to see just overall Hendon Hooker, this guy, he can flat out get it done. And I'm excited to see where Tennessee can go, because I think that Tennessee is now going to be a top 4 team. If Tennessee can find a way to make it into the college football playoffs at the end of the year, they could be a very scary team to go up against, especially with how fast their defense was playing. Obviously, everybody is going to bring their A game versus Bama. The real question is, can Tennessee replicate the performance that they had tonight against the rest of their schedule and then going into the college football playoffs, going into bowl season? If Tennessee can do that, they could be a dark horse to win the national championship. I am a firm believer now. The offense that they have and the weapons that they have, and they had this offensive performance while missing their top receiving target. Also, to me, the number one thing was Tennessee's defense was flying around the entire game. I know that a 49-point performance by Alabama doesn't look like Tennessee was playing defense at all. If you watch the game, you will see that Bryce Young was just making things happen. Not everybody has a Bryce Young. There was at least 8 times where Tennessee should have got a sack. Bryce Young just Houdini'd his way out of things. But Tennessee was flying around. Their defensive line was fast. Their linebackers were fast. The secondary was covering for long periods of time. Tennessee looks to be one of the most complete teams in college football right now. I'm excited to see how they play. The only downside, like I said, the only downside that I saw from Tennessee's game was that they were scoring way too quickly. Way too quickly. Like literally, their first 3 or 4 touchdowns, obviously they had ridiculously good field position, so it makes sense that you're scoring quickly. But the only downside is that they were scoring too quickly. They need to lean on the run a little bit more. I felt if they would, when they were up 21-7, they would just lean on the run a little bit more just to get a little bit more time off that clock, not give Alabama a chance to really claw their way back into the game. I think it would have been a little bit more of a decisive win for the Tennessee Volunteers, but that's a minor thing. Tennessee looks to be a dark horse to win the national championship this year. Hendon Hooker is him. This offense is explosive. This defense is fast. Tennessee looks to be the real deal. Oh yeah, and one more thing. Alabama will never find a clutch kicker. Literally, every kicker that signs to Alabama knows that you're at some point in your college career, you're going to be put in a position where you're going to need to hit a game-winning kick. You're not going to be in a lot of them because Alabama normally just blitzes everybody that they go up against. But every now and again, you're going to need to hit a clutch kick. And they never do. Never. I've never seen an Alabama kicker make the kick to win the game or to put them up. I've never seen an Alabama kicker make it. Literally, if I was a betting man, as soon as I saw Will Reichard, which I covered his highlights, I covered his high school highlights. I'm not trying to flame the kid. It's just more so Alabama kickers in general. I knew he was going to miss it. Granted, it was a 50-yard kick. It's not the easiest kick to make in the world, but if you're an Alabama kicker, you should be making that kick. Alabama, and it didn't even look good. Literally, the kick never had a chance. It was wide right from the jump. Literally, as soon as that ball left his foot, the ball was wide right. Alabama just needs to give up on trying to kick field goals and just go for a Hail Mary. I genuinely believe they have a better chance of hitting a Hail Mary than they do putting the game in a kicker's hands at the end of the game. Alabama, go find a kicker. Come on, please. Y'all would have won the past 45 national championships if y'all just had a kicker. But that is my complete breakdown of the Tennessee versus Alabama game. It was an absolutely phenomenal game, candidate for game of the year. I want you guys to leave this video a like and also comment down below. What are your guys' thoughts on this game? I know that this is going to be a polarizing game with a lot of opinions on it, so be sure to comment down below what you guys think about it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are on the road to 300,000 subscribers. With all that being said, I love and appreciate all y'all. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Ciao.